At its best, Matterfall is a case study on how many cascading balls of light can explode across a PS4 screen, and at worst is a clumsy, derivative side-scroller with little in the way of content or lasting appeal. Sadly in this case, the latter outweighs the former significantly. Matterfall is a side-scrolling platformer shoot-'em-up from Housemarque, developer of the PS4's best launch title, the voxel-unfriendly Resogun, and the recent similarly eyeball-straining Nex Machina, the latter of which was creatively led by arcade legend Eugene Jarvis, the mind behind Defender and Robotron. If you're at all aware of the studio's recent work, then you'll be in familiar territory. Your primary objective is to atomize enemies, but the game's challenge comes in linking together the various movement and offensive mechanics in order to kill foes quicker while maintaining a multiplier and racking up a score. The core mechanic being a dash that renders enemies easier to kill and grants temporary invincibility from projectiles. The mechanic is best used to maintain forward momentum through levels and create a dazzling light show in the process. However, all too frequently I found myself not bothering to stun my enemies and just shooting them instead due to the dash mechanic's clumsy and imprecise controls. The dash also functions as a platforming mechanic, as platforms will require a series of jumps and a dash in a sequence in order to pass through to the next section of the world. This works rather well, especially when placed in the middle of a phase of combat. It instills a sense of power and speed that feels great. The best time I had in Matterfall was when I was moving quickly, attacking a few enemies and being completely aware of what was going on. It's when the game uses too many of its tricks at once that things start to fall apart. It feels like the game has one or two too many mechanics. You also have the ability to create platforms out of the titular matter in order to progress. Jumps feel slightly too short in order to create platforms in time. Combine this with the enemies barraging you from all sides, and often I found myself thinking quicker than the game was enabling me to move. Anti-gravity sections make up a few reprieves from the action, but for the most part you'll be running through some fairly standard cyber worlds which degrade in visual interest, quality and aesthetic the longer the game goes on, which isn't very long. The last world is dark, uninspired and totally incongruous with the loud, bright, noisy display of the opening sections and the game's visuals on the whole. I didn't enjoy the boss fights at all. They were long and cheap and they introduce an enemy that invalidates the game's most central mechanic, the dash. The game actually does quite a good job at its opening levels to introduce you to enemies in a pattern that allows you to learn the mechanics slowly before introducing you to some more enemies and you combine your powers, finding a rhythm. It's something that Housemarque have been great at in all its titles, but suddenly in the boss fights in Matterfall, you're introduced to a magical chicken pakora that will instantly take health off you. It screams artificial difficulty and really soured me on the game's closing moments. To say the story was wafer thin would be doing a disservice to an essential dessert ingredient. As a matter of fact, let's play the entire clip of all the exposition you're given at the start of the game here.
Their first mistake was to build the galaxy's economy on this alien matter nobody understands. Next, they start using it to power these frickin' robots. And then someone begins a weapons research program underneath the largest city outside Earth. What could possibly go wrong, right? So now, with civilians missing, and prototype war machines on the rampage, right in the middle of the biggest evacuation in history, someone has to slip in, clean up the mess, and keep their mouth shut. A freelancer. A fixer, they call it. That's me, Avalon Darrow, at your service.
It's a shame the game doesn't have any more of this stuff apart from a slight cutscene at the end of the game. I was ready for a full campaign neo-futuristic romp like that of Trials Fusion. They share the same minimalism that I believe is meant to make the players focus on the foreground primarily, which makes sense in a game like Trials. All it results in this game is the backgrounds looking extremely dated, especially when compared to the particle effects that Housemarque have perfected over the years. And although some of the ancillary aesthetics change between worlds, the levels feel so similar. The game deals in repetition and it also deals in repetition. Enemies pop up multiple times and there's very little variety in them. The particle effects and cascading neon fireworks displays that accompany every fight do look fantastic, but the character is dull, the levels are bland, the enemies are less inventive than that of Nex Machina or Resogun. While I maintain that visually the game is consistently dazzling when it comes to its combat, this sometimes comes at the expense of gameplay, specifically trying to stay alive while Times Square explodes around you. I mean, look at this clip. Where am I here? A few times while playing, I literally had to just keep dashing in the hope that I'd appear somewhere from beneath a wall of searing neon. For £16, I don't think Matterfall is an experience you should rush into. It's the first Housemarque game this generation that I really doubt I'll play again. I have little interest in upping my score, This also comes from the fact that the levels are much longer than that of Resogun, so the just one more try aspect isn't there. If you're looking for a side-scrolling shooter, Shadow Complex is on the PSN. It's slightly dated, but it's still a great game. But if you're looking to roast your corneas with dazzling visuals and presentation, well, Resogun is still available, or that episode of Pokemon that sent all those kids blind is online. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and leave your thoughts on Matterfall. Until next time, I'm Jordan Midler, see you later.